Hey guys, welcome back. I am way backed up for spring. I have 7, 8, something like that, lawnmowers that I came across for free or really cheap that need to be looked at. I think we will tackle this one today. This one seems to be the worst. It essentially has no compression. I have no idea what's wrong with it other than it has no compression. The deck and wheels and everything seem to be in pretty decent shape. Cables are good. Pull start is good. Everything is good. Engine looks pretty good aside from the fact that there's a lot of oil. So I say we take a look at it. My garage is full of kids' toys and strollers and all sorts of other stuff. No room for my toys, just kids' toys. Doesn't sound too good, does it? I think the first order of business is to get the cylinder head off and see what's broken. I don't hear any parts clanking around in there. I'm hoping that the crankshaft is in one piece. No air filter. That's interesting. Alright, let's get these head bolts off. Oh my gosh. All of these are loose. That one wasn't. The rest were. That one is, that one is, that one is. All loose. Definitely somebody has been in here before me. Want to do this together? I also just noticed up here, it almost looks like there's like, I don't know, possibly nesting material? Maybe a mouse nest? Not sure. Could be that it overheated. Any case, let's try this. There's oil leaking out of here. It's never a good sign. Missing one bolt. Alright, we're gonna have a look at exactly the same time. Look at that. Clumsy me. Look at that. Valve seat came out of the block. I think we might be able to fix that. I suspect a mouse nest up here. So what usually happens in this, the reason why this happens is that the engine overheats. These valve seats are steel. The block is aluminum. The coefficient of expansion of steel is much less than that of aluminum. So you heat both of these up 200 degrees or 400 degrees. The aluminum expands twice as much as the steel. So if it gets very hot, then the aluminum expands to the point where the steel valve seat no longer stays in its seat in the block. So the valve seat will pop out. And the only way that can happen is if it gets quite hot, and a mouse nest up here would do that. Alright, so how big a mouse nest do you think we have in here? Decent size, for sure. Well, so the piston doesn't move in the bore. It's definitely got a little bit of markings on it, but I don't really feel an edge here, which is good. Definitely got hot. You can see kind of the burn marks there. But you know what? I say we try and fix this valve seat and give it a go. But first I gotta remove all these mouse turds. Let me go get a mask and try and clean this up. I noticed there's some chew marks on here, but it's not down to the actual conductor. Blew out the mouse nest, the remnants of it in there, and I removed the engine from the chassis. Now I think what we need to do is get the valve spring out of here. Yeah, the gasket looks okay. Hopefully it will seal back up after this. I know it's a little bit dark, but we are going to try and get this shiny new valve remover tool in here. So since this valve is unable to, the valve is not able to go all the way back and touch the lifter anymore because the valve seat is out, I'm having a hard time getting even this valve tool in there. So I think I'm going to just have to try and use some screwdrivers and needle nose pliers to maybe get this thing out. I know it's dark, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pull back the valve spring and then grab the retainer with a small pair of needle nose pliers. Finally got it free after prying on it for a while with screwdrivers. I was just basically taking a screwdriver and prying back and forth on it and working this retaining ring out. And now we should be able to get this valve out of here. There it is. So this valve seat, just from the pressure of the valve and turning the engine over, is already partially seated. So, and it's pretty even, so I don't think I'm going to try and pry it out of there. I think I'm just going to go with it. I don't have a bearing race and seal installer that's small enough to fit, but I figure that I can use a larger one to just tap it and get it flush. So there it is flush, but if you look at the other one, it's ever so slightly recessed, and I can still see there is a gap between the block and that seat. So I'm going to use a punch and very lightly tap all around it until it is seated. So I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to try and avoid the shiny area where it looks like the valve has been seating. We're going to have to lap these valves anyway, but at least this valve. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and peen over the aluminum. So I'm going to hit it with a sharp punch and try and get the aluminum to kind of fold over the valve seat so it doesn't come out again. Alright, it's a little bit rough, but it will definitely do. The valve and the valve seat are not in terrible condition. If you look at the valve, there's no pitting or scoring or anything where the valve is touching the valve seat. You don't need too much of this stuff. I'm a little bit disappointed that my new valve spring compressor didn't work, but I can't say that I'm too surprised since I could not get that valve just was not seated. You know, you couldn't get it seated because the valve seat was out. Maybe this size. You know what? I should have wire wheeled this the valve beforehand so it would get a better seal. That's all right. Alright, that ought to do it. So when I edit this down, you'll basically see that it'll be about 10 or 15, maybe 20 seconds in the video, whereas in reality I spent about 5 minutes lapping in that valve. And you kind of want to clean all of this stuff off because it is not good for the engines. It will grind down piston rings. It will grind down your valve seats. It will grind down basically anything if you have this stuff in the engine and you start it. So I wiped it all off, and I'm going to use some carb cleaner and kind of wash it off. I'll bring you back after I'm done. Alright, we are all cleaned up here, and I put a little bit of motor oil, clean motor oil, on the valve itself to help it, slide and seat into the seat without doing damage. And you can see that turned out very nice. This valve, the seating surface is very nice and even and gray, and so is the valve seat itself. So why don't we stick this back in. Like that. And let us try and put the spring back in. I think I figured out how this thing is supposed to work finally now. I put the spring with the retaining ring in the compressor, and I have it really squashed down, and that goes in really easily. So now I can put the valve in and work it through, and that is now perfectly seated, and I can start releasing pressure on the compressor, and I think that's it. Just like that. Easy. So I'm not sure what the valve gap is supposed to be, but the intake is 0.006 and the exhaust is 0.007, barely. Pretty tight, so yeah, 0.007 and 0.006. That seems okay to me. I can look up the spec, but I'm not really going to take these valves out and grind them, so I think that will do. And I think that's probably fairly within spec, so I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to go and take a brass wire wheel and clean up some of these gasket mating surfaces. The head gasket is not torn and it is still attached to the cylinder head. I am going to try and reuse it. I'm definitely going to check the compression after I install it to see that we still have good compression, because I don't have a spare head gasket for this motor. So the torque spec on this head is 140 inch-pounds, and you usually torque the head bolts in 3 steps, usually something like 70, 110, and then 140 inch-pounds. And I've already done the first 2 steps, and so this is the final. I have my torque wrench set at 140 inch-pounds. Don't know if you can see that or not. In any case, I like to start in the center and work outwards in a crisscross pattern. This is so that the cylinder head is flat on the engine block, that you are not warping the head, because if you tighten the outer ones first and the inside of the cylinder head is kind of raised up, bubbled up slightly, you'll never get to sit flat. So you always want to work from the center out in a crisscross pattern. So that's what I'm going to do here for the final torque. So we are looking for 140 inch-pounds, and that's what it's set at. So I'll torque the 2 inside the center ones first, and then I'm going to work out and across. Alright, torque to 140 inch-pounds. I'm going to go back over that again and just double check all the bolts, and then we'll put the engine back on the frame. Nice spring rain. I have the mower up on its side, and I am putting the last engine bolt in right here. I already got the two other ones in, so I'm going to put this one in, and then we'll tighten it. And then we'll put the blade back on. I'll bring you back. A nice sharpened blade. Blade was kind of chewed up. Took a lot of grinding, but eventually got it to where it's pretty decent. Not perfect, but good enough. And these things are usually about 40 foot-pounds, so I'm going to go get my torque wrench. Good. Alright, let's check for spark first. I got the bail pulled back and the cable connected. Oh, we got good spark. Let me go get the compression tester. I'm looking for a number between 90 and 110. That would be really good if I got that kind of number. 70 or 80, I probably will run. Anything less, I'd be a little worried about. Yeah, this is a used head gasket, so we're gonna get what we get. $120. Very nice. Well, I think this thing should run. I'm going to put the spark plug back in and get this tin back on with the pull start, and we're going to try and start it up. Alright, what do you say we give this thing a pull and see if it'll start? So I already know that it does prime. It has gas in the tank. I have no idea what the situation with the carburetor is, but figure let's go ahead and try it and see what happens. Alright. What do you think? Could that be a problem? Good. I think we may have a carburetor problem, but otherwise I think we are pretty good. And of course it's going to smoke. The whole crankcase was full of oil and everything, so to be expected. Alright, I am pretty satisfied with that. I think I'm going to call this video here and make this video just about the valve seat reseatment and not about the carburetor or anything else that's wrong with it. Clearly we're going to have to take apart the carb and see what's what with that. It also has two different size wheels on the front. I believe somebody replaced, I think it's supposed to have two smaller ones on the front, and that is a smaller one and that is a larger one. So I'm going to have to order one of these wheels. I don't have that. We're also going to have to do an oil change. Aside from that, I think it's... oh, I'm missing the air filter too. I'm going to have to order an air filter. I actually don't have any of those foam air filters for the Briggs Classic motors like this. So With that, I'd like to thank you for joining me on this one. I hope you found this video interesting. And if you like these kinds of videos, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. There should be a subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Press that button, and you'll be subscribed to my channel. And I'll see you on the next one. Do you think it might be time to clean up?